You've been chasing success for a long time, haven't you? Waking up earlier, working harder, reading the books, making the lists, pushing through the exhaustion, convincing yourself that if you just do one more thing, you'll finally feel enough. But what if I told you something quietly radical? The reason you're stuck isn't because you're not doing enough. It's because your nervous system doesn't feel safe to succeed. You've been told to grind, to stay hungry, to outwork the pain. But no one asked you the deeper question, do you even feel safe to receive what you're fighting for? This audiobook isn't about motivation. It's not about goals, morning routines, or millionaire habits. It's about what comes before all of that. It's about the part of you that's still healing, from the version of life that taught you survival was more important than peace. In the next few hours, we'll dismantle the myth of success as salvation. We'll talk about trauma responses, perfectionism as a cry for safety, burnout as a badge of worth, and most of all, we'll explore how to create a life that feels safe enough to hold your dreams, without abandoning yourself to earn them. If you're exhausted, if you're high-achieving but feel empty, if you can't figure out why peace still feels like laziness, you're in the right place. Take a deep breath, drop your shoulders, come home to yourself. We begin, not by doing more, but by undoing what never served you. Chapter 1. The Hustle That Hides You. You don't get rewarded for slowing down. That's the first unspoken rule of hustle culture, and maybe the one your nervous system internalized the hardest. You were taught, explicitly or silently, that rest is dangerous, that stillness invites failure, that if you're not always doing, always building, always pushing, then you're falling behind. And so you kept moving. You achieved. You improved. You performed. But here's what no one tells you until it's too late. You can be wildly productive and still be deeply disconnected from yourself. You can be successful and silently suffering. You can be praised for your hustle while using it to hide your pain. This is the truth I want us to sit with for the next few minutes. No judgment, no shame, just clarity. What if your hustle is hiding you? Let me explain. Hustle as armor hustle looks noble, clean, linear, measurable. You tell someone you're working 60 hours a week, they respect you. You say you're running on 4 hours of sleep for your goals. You get claps, not concern. You say you've been in grind mode for 5 years and they say, you're built different. But the hustle is rarely about just ambition. For many of us, hustle is armor, the thing we wear when our inner world is too painful, too chaotic, or too unknown to sit with. When you don't feel emotionally safe, you hustle. When you fear rejection, you hustle. When your worth has been tied to performance since childhood, you hustle. You hustle to matter. You hustle to distract. You hustle to delay feeling what still aches beneath the surface. And the scary part? The world rewards you for it. The functional pain. There's a type of pain we never talk about because it looks so productive from the outside. It's not lying in bed all day pain. It's not crying in public pain. It's not dramatic or disruptive. It's functional pain. This is the kind of emotional pain that hides inside high performers. The executive who never stops because stillness reminds her of abandonment. The straight-A student who's terrified of being ordinary. The entrepreneur who links every dollar earned to their sense of worth. The perfectionist who says, I'm fine, but hasn't felt peace in years. No one sees the pain, because it's covered by results. And we live in a world that respects results more than regulation. But here's the cost. You start confusing your coping mechanisms with your character. You think, I must love pressure. I just thrive under chaos. I'm just wired for overwork. But no, that's not your personality. That's your nervous system stuck in a loop. Where did you learn this? Pause with me here. Let's go back. Who taught you that you had to prove your worth to belong? Was it a parent who only gave praise when you performed? Was it a school system that ranked your identity by grades? Was it growing up in a culture where rest was labeled as weakness? Somewhere along the way, you absorbed a lesson that said, if I want to be seen, I must be useful. If I want to be loved, I must be impressive. If I want to be safe, I must keep achieving. That became the origin point of your hustle. And it's not your fault. You learned to survive in a world that valued what you do more than who you are. But now, the very thing that once kept you safe is keeping you stuck. The exhaustion you can't admit. There comes a moment in every high achiever's life when the mask slips, even if just for a moment. You get the promotion, but feel nothing. You hit your revenue goal, but spiral into emptiness the next day. You finally get the praise you've been working for, and it just doesn't land. That moment? It's your soul tapping your shoulder and whispering, this isn't working anymore. But instead of listening, most people double down. More hours, more goals, more books, more tools, more habits. Anything to avoid asking the one question that would unravel the whole thing. What if I've been chasing the wrong thing this whole time? The emotional cost of constant motion. Let's break it down. Hustling to prove your worth isn't just exhausting, it's destabilizing. Here's what it often looks like beneath the surface. You feel disconnected from your body. You confuse busyness with progress. You experience anxiety when things are too calm. You feel unworthy when you're not producing something. You secretly resent how much you're doing, but can't stop. That's not ambition. That's survival mode. And survival mode will build you a life that looks successful, but feels like a cage. Trauma that wears a suit. Trauma doesn't always look like panic attacks. Sometimes trauma looks like ambition. Showing up early so no one thinks you're lazy, overcommitting so no one feels abandoned, achieving so no one sees your unworthiness. This is the trauma response we glorify. You've just learned to cope in a socially acceptable way. You don't avoid life. You overperform in it. You don't fall apart. You make six figures while falling apart quietly. You don't say you're scared. You say you're just really driven. But beneath the title, the brand, the vision board, there's often a child who just wanted to feel safe, seen, and loved. And that child is still waiting. What happens when you pause? Here's the paradox. The very thing that could heal you, rest, stillness, slowing down, feels unsafe. Because it's in the pause that everything catches up. The loneliness, the grief, the fear, the inner critic, the unmet needs, the moments you never processed. So instead of pausing, you speed up. But the pain doesn't go away. It just hides beneath your to-do list. Until your body says enough. Until burnout breaks you. Until your joy disappears. Until no accomplishment feels good anymore. Your worth is not in the work. Here's the truth I want you to start holding today. Gently, if needed. You are not what you produce. You are not what you achieve. You are not the sum of your tasks, trophies, or targets. Your worth was never meant to be earned. It was always meant to be embodied. But to access that kind of worthiness, you have to stop hiding behind your hustle. You have to look inward, not with blame, not with guilt, but with curiosity. What do you actually need? Start asking better questions. Not, what's next? How do I push harder? Why am I not there yet? But, what part of me still feels unsafe? What would I choose if I trusted I was already enough? What do I need to feel emotionally safe to succeed? You don't need more goals. You need more self-permission. You don't need another productivity hack. You need regulation. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to find yourself beneath the armor. Dr. Gray's reflection. Prompt. Let's end this chapter with a journaling question. What has my hustle been protecting me from feeling? Give yourself permission to be honest, not to fix it, not to change it, just to finally see it. Because you cannot heal what you continue to perform through. Chapter 2. When discipline becomes self-punishment. Discipline has always been painted as the hero. It's the word that fills vision boards, the weapon people praise when willpower wins, the answer that gets shouted in productivity podcasts and military memoirs alike. Be more disciplined, be harder, push through, lock in. And for many people, discipline does bring structure, consistency, and results. But I want to talk to the ones for whom discipline has become something else. Not strength, but strain. Not self-respect, but self-abandonment. Not peace, but punishment. I want to speak to the part of you that's white-knuckling your way through life, not out of love for the process, but out of fear of what happens if you stop. Because here's the quiet truth almost no one talks about. You can follow every rule, build every habit, and still be hurting yourself. Let's explore how discipline becomes a mask, and how to take it off without falling apart. When structure is a trauma response, discipline is often celebrated as clarity, but for many, it starts as control, a way to create predictability in a world that once felt dangerous. If your childhood was chaotic, controlling your schedule may feel like safety. If love was conditional, routines may feel like rituals that protect your worth. If your emotions were ignored, mastering habits may feel like a way to matter. So, what looks like discipline on the surface might actually be hypervigilance, perfectionism, emotional suppression, fear of failure, masquerading as ambition. The body isn't stupid. It builds habits to protect itself. But when those habits are rooted in unprocessed fear, they become chains, not scaffolding. You don't need to demonize discipline, but you do need to interrogate its origin. I feel guilty when I rest. If you've ever said that, pause here. That guilt is a signal. It's not a sign that you're lazy. It's not evidence that you need to push harder. It's a whisper from your nervous system that says, I don't feel safe unless I'm producing something. Where did you learn that stillness twines danger? Who taught you that rest, regression? Why does taking a break feel like betrayal? These are the deeper questions discipline never asks, because it's too busy keeping you on track. But healing begins the moment you ask, what am I afraid will happen if I stop? The cycle of self-punishment. Here's how the loop forms. You feel anxious or inadequate. You respond by creating stricter routines. You fail to meet those impossibly high standards. You judge yourself. You double down. Harder, tighter, less rest, and the loop spins. You might look successful, but inside, you're exhausted, disconnected, unfulfilled, chasing a finish line that keeps moving. This is when discipline isn't growth anymore. It's gripping. Discipline rooted in shame is just a socially approved form of self-harm. And it's time we said that out loud. Real stories. When discipline hurts. Let me tell you about Ava. Ava was the one who always had it together. A color-coded calendar, 5 a.m. runs, flawless work ethic. To the outside world, she was admirable, but inside, she couldn't breathe. She hadn't taken a real vacation in 4 years. She had panic attacks when she didn't hit her productivity goals. And she believed, deep down, that rest made her weak. Her discipline wasn't rooted in love. It was born from fear. Fear of being forgotten, fear of being ordinary, fear of facing the silence of her own mind. Ava wasn't thriving. She was performing safety. You may not be Ava, but if any part of you resonates, know this. You don't need to destroy yourself to deserve peace. Reclaiming discipline as self-compassion. Let's redefine discipline, not as punishment, but as partnership. Healthy discipline says, I'm worthy, even if I take a break. I listen to my body, not just my planner. I want to be consistent because I care, not because I'm scared. You can still have habits, routines, systems, but they must serve you, not enslave you. Ask yourself, is this routine rooted in fear or freedom? That question alone will change your life. Somatic clues. You're crossing the line. The body always tells the truth. Here are signs that your discipline may have become self-punishment. You feel anxious when plans change. You avoid rest because it feels unproductive. You judge others who don't work as hard. You feel emotionally numb, even when you succeed. You push through pain and call it resilience. Discipline that disregards the body is disconnection. The goal isn't to abandon structure. It's to build it from a place of wholeness. A new definition. Let's rewrite the word. Discipline is the consistent act of honoring what supports your highest well-being, not what impresses people, not what numbs your fear, not what exhausts you for validation, but what grounds you, what aligns you, what loves you forward. You don't have to choose between structure and softness. You can be held and free. You can be consistent and kind to yourself. Where in my life am I mistaking self-control for self-worth? Let that question sit with you. Not to shame yourself, not to tear down what you've built, but to return to it with more honesty, more tenderness, more truth. Because the most powerful kind of discipline isn't the one that silences your feelings. It's the one that creates space to finally feel safe enough to live from your truth. This is Dr. Gray. We'll keep unearthing what's really going on in the next chapter. Chapter 3. Who are you without the productivity? Who are you when there's nothing left to prove? When the to-do list is finished? When the inbox is quiet? When no one is watching? When no one is clapping? What's left of you without the productivity? For most high achievers, that question lands like a punch to the chest, because we've spent our whole lives performing value, earning love, proving we belong, and productivity, being busy, being needed, being in motion, became the clearest, most measurable way to avoid the deeper question, do I have worth if I'm not doing something useful? In this chapter, we pause that doing, and we go inward. We explore the identity crisis that emerges when we stop performing, the grief, the emptiness, the confusion, but also the possibility. Because beneath the performance, there's a self you haven't met in years. Or maybe never met at all. Let's meet them. The disappearing self. Productivity doesn't just steal your time, it can steal your identity. When every hour is filled with purpose, you forget how to be purposeless. When every action is tied to a result, you forget how to rest without guilt. Many of us wake up one day and realize, I don't know what I enjoy. I don't know what I feel. I don't know who I am without the goals. This is not failure. This is awakening. But it feels terrifying because when you stop performing, all the buried feelings return. Shame, grief, loneliness, unmet needs, the fear that you are nothing without achievement. We're not taught to handle this. We're taught to avoid it. So most people reattach their identity to the next project, the next role, the next badge. And the cycle continues. But what if you didn't rush to replace your productivity mask? What if you let the real you surface? Slowly, awkwardly, honestly. That's where we're headed. Why stillness feels threatening. Let's talk about your nervous system. If chaos or neglect was your early environment, then motion became medicine. Busyness was a distraction from pain. Achievement was a way to feel seen. So now, decades later, when you pause, your body doesn't interpret that as relaxation. It interprets it as danger, stillness, sunshine, vulnerability, silence, exposure. Slowing down, sansa, emotional ambush, which is why most people don't stop, not because they're ambitious, but because they're afraid. Afraid of the silence, afraid of their own thoughts, afraid that if they stop producing, no one will have a reason to love them. This isn't laziness or weakness. This is a nervous system conditioned by survival. And healing doesn't come from forcing stillness. It comes from building enough internal safety to tolerate it. The collapse after the goal. Have you ever reached a huge milestone only to spiral the next week? You finish the degree, You hit the financial target, you publish the book, you build the thing, and then suddenly you feel empty. That's the collapse. Because for months, maybe years, your identity was wrapped around the pursuit. And when the pursuit ends, your nervous system crashes. This doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It means your self-worth was tied to your output. Productivity is a poor substitute for personhood. You were never meant to be a machine. You were never meant to find yourself only through what you produce. This chapter is your permission slip to unhook. What's underneath the doing? Let's imagine you had a week with no expectations, no emails, no deadlines, no chores, no responsibilities. What would you choose to do? Not what would make you look impressive, not what would move the needle, not what would earn applause, but what would feel nourishing, honest, true? Many people can't answer that question because they've never built an identity around joy, curiosity, play, exploration, connection. They've only built identity around efficiency. You are allowed to be a person, not a project. You are allowed to matter, even if you're not useful. You are allowed to be loved, even if you're unproductive. This isn't just emotional fluff. This is healing. How to reconnect with yourself. Reclaiming your identity starts small. Try this. Spend 1 hour a week doing something with no outcome, no metric, no improvement. Pay attention to what lights you up versus what drains you, even if it's productive. Journal with the prompt. If I wasn't trying to be good, what would I want right now? You're not rebuilding identity from scratch. You're remembering it. Because beneath the layers of productivity, there's someone soft, brave, beautiful, and worthy. And they've been waiting. Who am I when I'm not trying to prove I'm enough? That's not a question to solve, it's a question to live into. Let yourself explore it slowly, without pressure, without performance, because your identity is not a resume, it's a relationship. This is Dr. Gray. We'll keep unearthing what's really going on in the next chapter. Chapter 4. The Shame That Fuels Success. We don't often link shame to success, because when we imagine high achievers, the polished resumes, the trophies, the public praise, we imagine confidence, drive, purpose. But the quiet truth behind many outwardly successful people is this. They didn't rise because they believed in themselves. They rose to escape what they believed about themselves. This is the anatomy of shame-fueled success. It looks impressive, but underneath, it's hollow, painful, fragile. In this chapter, we'll explore the emotional cost of chasing success when shame is the fuel. We'll name the hidden stories that whisper, "not enough," and discover what it takes to replace shame with self-trust. Because success built on shame is never safe. But success built on healing, that's where real freedom lives. The first belief, I am not enough. Shame isn't the same as guilt. Guilt says, I did something wrong. Shame says, I am something wrong. It's not about a behavior, it's about your being. This kind of shame starts early. A parent who made love conditional, a teacher who humiliated you, a culture that told you your identity made you less than. The child doesn't know how to process rejection, so instead of blaming the environment, they blame themselves. If I was better, this wouldn't have happened. And so begins the lifelong hustle to become better. Better grades, better looks, better achievements, better behavior. Not to thrive, but to escape the unbearable feeling of not being worthy. How shame becomes a strategy. When shame takes the wheel, success becomes survival. You work hard, not to build, but to hide. You stay busy, not to grow, but to avoid. You accomplish, not from joy, but from fear. The voice in your head becomes a drill sergeant. Keep pushing, or they'll see the real you. Don't rest, or you'll fall behind. Do more, or you'll be left behind. Every win is relief, not celebration. Every mistake feels like confirmation that you're a fraud. This is what I call the shame cycle of success. Shame whispers, you're not enough. You hustle to disprove it. You achieve something. You still feel unworthy, belonging. And until that part of you feels seen and loved, the hustle will never end. Real story. Marcus was a startup founder. Multi-million-dollar valuation, media features, a calendar booked 6 months out. To the world, he was a visionary. To himself, he felt like a fraud. No matter how much he achieved, the voice in his head said, "You don't deserve this. They'll figure you out. You're not actually good at this." When we worked together, we traced it back. A father who only praised success. A coach who screamed, "You'll never be enough." A culture that equated masculinity with emotional silence. Marcus didn't rise because he believed in himself. He rose to outrun his shame. And it worked, until it didn't. Because shame-fueled success always leads to burnout, to disconnection, to collapse. The good news? When Marcus learned to hold space for the shame, not fight it, he discovered a new kind of drive. Self-honoring, regulated, whole. You don't have to lose your ambition to lose your shame. You just have to change the fuel. Shame lives in the nervous system. Shame isn't just a thought. It's a felt experience. It sits in the stomach, in the chest, in the voice you hear when no one's around. It's in the flinch before asking for help. It's in the silence when you want to speak but fear being too much. You can't logic your way out of it. You have to feel your way through it. This is where body-based healing comes in. Breath work to calm the nervous system. Somatic practices to restore safety. Inner child work to build trust with your younger self. You don't shame yourself out of shame. You hold it with compassion. And in that holding, something wild happens. The drive to prove relaxes. The voice softens. The hustle slows down, not from failure, but from healing. Rebuilding success from self-worth. So what does success look like after shame? It looks like resting without guilt, saying no without spiraling, letting go of perfectionism, building from joy, not fear. Believing you're enough before you achieve this kind of success is sustainable, because it's not about escaping who you are, it's about expressing it. You still work, you still create, you still grow, but you do it from wholeness, from alignment, from truth. What have I been trying to prove with my success? Let that question open something in you, not to shame, but to liberate. Because when you stop chasing success to escape shame, you start building success that actually feels like you. This is Dr. Gray. We'll keep unearthing what's really going on in the next chapter. Chapter 5. When affirmations don't work. Affirmations. They're everywhere, printed on mugs, plastered on Instagram, taught in self-help seminars with promises like, "I am enough. I love myself. I am worthy." And for some people they work, but for others, maybe you, they don't land. They don't shift anything. In fact, they make you feel worse. Because when the affirmation doesn't match your inner reality, it can create more dissonance, not healing, more frustration, not peace. This chapter isn't about bashing affirmations. It's about understanding why they don't always work, and what to do instead. Because you don't need to shout, "I am confident" in the mirror 100 times. You need to feel safe enough to believe it. And that's a deeper process. Let's go there. Why the brain rejects empty positivity. Your brain is smart. When you repeat something that directly contradicts your lived experience, like, "I love myself," after decades of self-rejection, your subconscious goes, "That's not true." And not only does it reject the affirmation, it strengthens the opposing belief. It's called the backfire effect. If the affirmation is too far from your current reality, your mind defends the old story harder. "I am not enough. And now I feel like a fraud for pretending I am." So the mirror practice becomes a shame practice. And that's not your fault. That's how cognitive dissonance works. It doesn't mean you're broken. It means your system is trying to protect you from being gaslit, even by yourself. When positivity becomes pressure. Here's another layer. We live in a culture obsessed with optimism, and in that obsession, we sometimes bypass reality. Affirmations become a band-aid over deep emotional wounds, trauma, rejection, lost, neglect. Saying "I am powerful" won't shift anything if your nervous system is still frozen in fear. Saying "I am whole" won't heal if you've never experienced relational safety. Saying "I am safe" won't land if your body still lives in survival mode. Affirmations aren't bad. They're just incomplete. Real transformation requires more than words. It requires embodied truth. The body first, then the belief F. Let's talk somatics. Your beliefs live in your body, not just your brain. If you've carried trauma, rejection, or chronic stress, then your nervous system is where the repair must begin. Try saying "I'm safe" when your shoulders are tense, your breath is shallow, and your jaw is clenched. It won't land, but if you breathe deeply, ground your feet, relax your body, then maybe the affirmation can start to sink in. That's the key. You have to regulate before you reprogram, because your body has to believe it's true, not just your mind. From affirmation to integration. Here's a better path. Acknowledge the truth. Start with honesty, not fantasy. Try, "It's hard to love myself right now," and that's okay. Connect to your body. Drop into breath, movement, or grounding. Safety isn't a thought, it's a sensation. Use bridging statements. Instead of "I love myself," try, "I'm learning to be kinder to myself." Pair affirmations with action. Say, "I'm worthy of care," and go nourish your body. Say, "I'm enough," and set a boundary. Let time do its work. You didn't internalize shame overnight. You won't rewrite it overnight either. Affirmations are a practice, not a performance. Real story. Lara came to me frustrated. She had done all the work. Journals full of "I am love," "I am light," sticky notes everywhere, mirror talk every morning, and still nothing, because deep down she didn't believe it. What she did believe? That she was a burden, that she had to earn love, that rest made her lazy. Those beliefs were planted in childhood, and no affirmation could outshout them. So we did something different. We stopped forcing the new belief, and we got curious about the old ones. She wept the first time she said, "It makes sense I feel unworthy. That's how I was treated." That was the beginning, not of pretending, but of healing. Today, Lara doesn't just say she's worthy, she feels it, and she built that not on hype, but on honesty. Trauma-informed affirmations. Let's reframe how we speak to ourselves. Here are examples of trauma-informed affirmations that meet you where you are. It's okay to not be okay. I am doing the best I can with what I have. I don't have to earn rest. Even if I don't believe this yet, I'm open to the possibility. My feelings make sense. Notice the tone. Gentle, spacious, and grounded. You're not shouting over your pain. You're sitting with it. And that's what creates trust. What do I need to hear that I actually believe? Start there, not with a perfect affirmation, but with an honest one. Because healing isn't about reciting mantras. It's about building a relationship with yourself that feels safe enough to believe them. This is Dr. Gray. We'll keep unearthing what's really going on in the next chapter. Chapter 6. The Cost of High Functioning. There's a quiet category of pain that rarely gets named, because from the outside, everything looks fine. You're productive, you're helpful, you're responsive, you're organized. You're high functioning, and people admire that. They say you're strong, reliable, competent. But here's the secret. High functioning doesn't mean healed. It often means hiding. In this chapter, we're going to explore the hidden emotional toll of high functioning survival. The people who get stuff done despite the internal storm. Because being high-functioning while silently suffering is a form of self-abandonment, we're conditioned to praise. Let's talk about the cost. What is high-functioning trauma? You've heard of PTSD. But what about HFT, high-functioning trauma? It's not a clinical diagnosis, but it is a lived reality for millions. These are the people who show up to work even during emotional collapse, help everyone else while ignoring their own pain, smile in public, spiral in private, are praised for being strong, but have no one strong for them. Their coping mechanism isn't shut down, it's overdrive. Their trauma response is achievement, not because they're well, but because being useful, productive, or perfect became their armor. The origins of overfunctioning. High-functioning people often had to grow up too fast, emotionally unavailable parents, homes where chaos was the norm, constant criticism or conditional love. They learned early, if I'm not a problem, maybe I'll be safe. If I perform, maybe I'll be loved. So they over-adapt. They read the room before entering. They suppress their needs. They become who everyone needs them to be, at the cost of who they really are. This isn't ambition, it's adaptation. It's not resilience, it's survival. And it works until it doesn't. The hidden symptoms of high functioning. Just because you're excelling doesn't mean you're okay. Here are some of the symptoms that high-functioning individuals often carry beneath the surface. Chronic anxiety masked as productivity, insomnia, despite being tired all the time, digestive issues from a constantly activated nervous system, hyper-independence, the inability to ask for or receive help, perfectionism, not as a value but a defense mechanism, emotional numbness, always fine, never fully alive, deep loneliness in rooms where you're surrounded. The performance is seamless, but the cost is staggering, because eventually your body keeps the score, and the soul starts to whisper, I can't do this anymore. Why burnout isn't always loud. Most people think of burnout as collapse, quitting the job, leaving the relationship, crying on the floor. But high-functioning burnout is different. It's quiet, it's subtle. It sounds like, I'm here, but I'm not present. I got everything done, but I feel nothing. I used to love this, but now I'm numb. You keep going, because you always do, but you're disconnected. From joy, from rest, from yourself. This is emotional erosion, not in one dramatic blow, but in tiny daily betrayals of your own needs. The puzzle of internal conflict. One of the most painful aspects of high-functioning distress is the split inside you. There's the part of you that's efficient, productive, high-achieving, and there's the part of you that's aching, exhausted, unseen. You want rest, but feel guilty for it. You want help, but can't ask. You want ease, but only no pressure. So you live in a constant tug-of-war, between capacity and collapse, between image and integrity, between expectation and authenticity. This internal war isn't sustainable, but it is familiar, and familiar always feels safe, even when it hurts. Real story. Naomi was a therapist, smart, empathic, high-achieving. She held space for others all day and went home to silence. She was the go-to friend, the dependable sibling, the resilient one. But under the surface, panic attacks in parking lots, dread every Sunday night, a deep, aching sadness she couldn't name. When she finally said, I think I'm burnt out, she cried, not from weakness, but from relief. Because, for once, she wasn't pretending. Her healing didn't begin with time off. It began with truth. I am not okay, and I don't want to live like this anymore. That sentence cracked something open, and from that crack, she began to rebuild, not her role, herself. The nervous system of a high functioner. Let's get clinical for a moment. High functioners often live in a sympathetic dominant state, meaning their nervous system is stuck in go mode, Fight or flight isn't just for danger, it becomes the default. You're alert, you're busy, you're productive, but you're never settled. Your body doesn't know what true rest feels like, because rest has always meant risk. Risk of judgment, of falling behind, of not being needed. So even when the calendar is clear, your system stays activated. To heal this, we have to teach your body that rest is not abandonment, that asking for help is not weakness, that stillness is not laziness. This is not just mindset work, it's nervous system work. Breaking the armor. Gently, high functioners don't heal by dropping everything. That would feel terrifying. They heal by gradual softening, one pause at a time, one no at a time, one self-honoring decision at a time. Try this. Cancel one non-essential meeting this week. Let one text go unanswered for a day. Take one nap without guilt. Ask one person for help, even if it's small. Every time you do, you're telling your nervous system, we don't have to perform to be safe anymore. And slowly, you start to believe it. Redefining strength. What if strength isn't doing it all? What if strength is knowing when to stop? High-functioning people are often applauded for their output, but real strength is found in honesty, boundaries, rest, asking, slowing down. Because if your function comes at the cost of your feeling, it's not strength, it's suppression. The world may not validate your pause, but your body will, your soul will, your future will. Where am I functioning instead of feeling? Let that question sit with you, not to shame, but to shift. Because you deserve more than performance. You deserve presence. And that starts when you stop calling burnout success. This is Dr. Gray. We'll keep unearthing what's really going on in the next chapter. Chapter 7. Breaking Patterns starts in the body. You've read the books, you've journaled, you've affirmed, you've talked to your therapist, and yet, you find yourself reacting the same way, getting triggered by the same things, returning to the same toxic cycles. If you've ever asked yourself, why do I keep ending up here? This chapter is for you, because patterns don't just live in your beliefs, they live in your body. And until you change your physiological baseline, the wiring underneath your thoughts, you'll keep repeating from a place that feels inevitable. Let's explore how breaking the cycle begins not with willpower, but with regulation. Your body is the archive of every pattern. The nervous system is not just a stress detector, it's a historian. It remembers how you were spoken to when you were hurt, who felt safe, what triggered danger, and it encodes that into muscle tension, posture, breathing, and default responses. This is why someone can say, I love you, and your body still flinch. It's why rest feels unsafe, why silence feels like abandonment, why pleasure feels unearned, because the pattern isn't in the event, it's in the response. And that response lives in your physiology. Until it's rewired, you'll repeat. Cognitive work isn't enough. There's a misconception that you can think your way out of trauma or deeply embedded survival responses. You can't. That's not how the brain-body connection works. The prefrontal cortex, logic, is helpful, but it's not in charge when you're dysregulated. When triggered, your amygdala fires up, hijacking the logical brain and launching you into old survival scripts. Shut down, overwork. Lash out. People please, dissociate. These are not choices, they're reflexes. And reflexes don't change through insight alone. They change through felt safety. Regulation is the gateway to repatterning. Let's define this clearly. Regulation is the ability to return to calm, connected presence after a stress response. This is the foundation for any personal transformation. Because when you're regulated, you can pause before reacting, you can stay in hard conversations, you can access self-compassion, you can choose differently. When you're dysregulated, you snap, you shut down, you regress. The nervous system literally overrides your new intentions with old protections. So the work is not just to think better, It's to feel safer. The layers of embodied patterns. Let's break this down into 4 somatic layers. Autonomic imprints. These are your baseline nervous system states: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Example: you grew up in chaos, so your body stays in alert mode even when nothing is wrong. Muscle memory. Your body holds bracing patterns: tight shoulders, clenched jaw, shallow breath. These become automatic responses to perceived stress, even in safe situations. Sensory triggers. Smells, tones, postures, all can activate trauma responses without conscious awareness. You're not overreacting. You're reliving something encoded in your sensory memory. Behavioral conditioning. Repeated responses become habits: shutting down during conflict, chasing unavailable people, etc. These patterns are the body's attempt to survive, not sabotage. When you understand these layers, you stop blaming yourself for failing to change, and you start addressing what's actually running the show. From survival loop to safety loop. The goal isn't to become perfect, it's to become present. You're trying to move from chronic tension, grounded ease, reactivity, responsiveness, avoidance, embodied engagement, control, trust. This transition doesn't happen through discipline. It happens through co-regulation and body-based practices. Here are some. Vagus nerve activation. Humming, chanting, cold exposure, or deep belly breathing can tone your vagus nerve and calm your system. Movement trauma is stored in immobility. Moving your body, even gently, helps release it. Touch, self-holding, weighted blankets, or safe physical connection can signal safety to the nervous system. Sound, listening to slow rhythmic music or low-toned frequencies helps down-regulate overactive systems. Nature exposure. Being in nature restores the parasympathetic state and reconnects you to grounded presence. You don't need to master all these. You just need one to start anchoring your body back into the now. Chapter 7. Breaking patterns starts in the body. Matteo was a high-level software engineer, sharp, respected, and composed. But internally, chaos. Every team meeting triggered his heart rate. Every review made him feel like a fraud. He felt tense all the time, but couldn't explain why. "I've done therapy," he said. "I know I'm safe, but my body doesn't believe me." That's when we shifted the focus from cognitive insight to embodied awareness. Instead of analyzing his reactions, he began tracking his body. What does anxiety feel like? Where does tension settle? What environments feel soothing? Over time, Matteo built a vocabulary with his body. He didn't just talk about emotions, he located them. And once he knew where his patterns lived, he could begin releasing them. His transformation didn't come from mindset shifts. It came from learning how to be with himself when things felt hard. He still gets anxious, but now he responds instead of reacting. That's embodiment. Why the body heals. What the mind avoids. There's a reason your brain avoids certain memories, truths, or feelings. It thinks it's protecting you, but your body remembers, and your body can help you process without words. This is why modalities like somatic experiencing (EMDR), eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, TRE, tension and trauma release exercises, polyvagal informed therapy, work so well for long-held trauma, because they work with the body's rhythm, not to rush healing, but to restore choice, capacity, and trust. Gentle body-based rituals. Here are a few rituals you can integrate into your day to support nervous system rewiring. The 5-second scan. Place your hand on your chest and ask, "What am I feeling right now?" Just notice. Somatic journaling. Instead of writing thoughts, write sensations. Tight jaw, fast breath, cold hands. Let the body speak. Tapping. EFT. Use emotional freedom technique to tap on acupressure points while naming stressors aloud. Simple, powerful, and grounding. Orienting. Gently look around the room. Name 5 things you see. This reconnects your brain to the present moment. Weighted rest. Lay under a heavy blanket for 10 minutes. Feel the support. Let go. These aren't hacks. They're invitations to return, to slow down, to tune in. Even 60 seconds of stillness can change the direction of your day. Integration. Over-information. This chapter may have given you new insights, but don't let it stop at understanding. Knowledge isn't transformation. Practice is. You don't need more books. You need more breath. You don't need better goals. You need better grounding. Integration means giving your body time, space, and compassion to unlearn old defense systems and build new, safer templates. Not to bypass your pain, but to hold it with curiosity, because that's what shifts the pattern. Not a better affirmation, not a louder mindset, but a quieter, slower, more honest connection to the body you live in. What does safety feel like? And how can I give my body more of that today? Start there. Not with control, not with pressure, with presence. You've lived in survival long enough. It's time to come home to your body. This is Dr. Gray. We'll keep unearthing what's really going on in the next chapter. Chapter 8. Stop apologizing for what protected you. Before we heal a behavior, we often shame it. We say things like, "Why am I so guarded? Why do I push people away? Why do I always need control?" And underneath all of that, a quieter question we're often too ashamed to ask. Why did I need that to survive? This chapter is not about letting unhealthy patterns stay, but it is about recognizing the intelligence of what protected you. Because that wall you built, that silence, that need to keep busy, they didn't come from nowhere. They came from somewhere sacred. They came from moments where you had no other choice. Let's stop apologizing for the brilliance of our survival. Let's begin there. Adaptive, not defective. One of the most healing things I tell my clients is this: you're not broken. You're brilliantly adapted. That anxiety, it taught you how to scan for danger before it struck. That people-pleasing, it was how you kept the peace in a volatile home. That overthinking, it helped you prepare for unpredictable reactions. These weren't flaws. These were solutions. Solutions your nervous system chose to keep you safe when you were too young, too powerless, or too unsupported to choose anything else. You didn't ask for these behaviors. You earned them. And now that you're healing, you don't erase them. You thank them. Because the part of you that's hardest to love is often the part that loved you first. Real story. Aaliyah. Aaliyah had a reputation. Strong, independent, unbothered. But inside, she was exhausted. Every relationship felt like work. Every disagreement triggered shutdown. She didn't trust easily, even when people gave her no reason to fear. "Why am I like this?" she asked. But then we uncovered her history, a childhood full of betrayal, secrets, adults who couldn't be counted on. Her hyper-independence wasn't arrogance. It was armor. And when she began to see that, something softened. "I never got to be protected," she said. "So I became the protector." We didn't start by telling her to open up. We started by honoring the brilliance of her boundaries. From there, trust didn't feel like a demand. It felt like a decision she could make, because she finally felt safe enough. The body remembers protection. Every pattern you carry has a root in your body. Those clenched fists, they once protected you from being hit. That tight jaw, it kept you from saying the wrong thing and getting punished. That quick, "I'm fine," it helped you avoid being a burden when no one had the capacity. The body remembers everything that worked, and it doesn't forget just because you're older now. So when you catch yourself reacting in ways you don't like, pause. Instead of judging it, witness it. Ask, what is this part of me still trying to protect? Because healing begins when we stop calling protection self-sabotage. The double bind of healing. Here's something that happens to almost everyone on the healing journey. You start to feel safer, and then you feel worse. Why? Because once your body finally relaxes, everything it was holding starts to surface. Tears, grief, anger, exhaustion. You start to feel the pain that your protective patterns kept buried for years. This is not regression. This is integration. Your body is saying, now that we're safe, can we finally process what happened? Don't run from this part. It's where the real work begins. From shame to compassion. Try this reframe. Instead of, I'm too sensitive, try, I needed sensitivity to stay alert in unsafe spaces. Instead of, I'm controlling, try, control made chaos feel manageable. Instead of, I have trust issues, try, my body remembers what betrayal felt like. Shame keeps you stuck, compassion sets you free. Because the goal isn't to punish the parts that protected you, the goal is to thank them, and then invite them to rest. A practice. Thank your protector. Close your eyes. Breathe. Picture the part of you that shows up when things feel hard. Maybe it's the achiever. Maybe it's the avoider. Maybe it's the inner critic. Say to it, I see why you showed up. I'm grateful. And I want to learn a new way with you. This isn't about exile. It's about integration. Because the parts that protected you still want to serve you. They just need a different job now. What part of me worked so hard to keep me safe? And how can I honor it today without shaming it? You survived. You adapted. You did what you had to do. Now, you get to do something different. Not because you were wrong before, but because now you're finally safe enough to choose. This is Dr. Gray. We'll keep unearthing what's really going on in the next chapter. Chapter 9. When you don't know who you are without the struggle. What happens when you get everything you fought for? When the chaos settles, the danger fades, and the thing you've been chasing is finally yours? For many, that moment doesn't bring peace. It brings panic. Because struggle wasn't just a season. It became an identity. You didn't just survive hardship. You built yourself around it. And without it, you don't quite know where to stand. This chapter is for the ones who feel lost when things are finally calm. The ones who crave peace but don't know how to live in it. Let's talk about why safety feels foreign when survival was all you ever knew. Struggle as identity. We all carry internal narratives. I'm the strong one. I'm the one who makes it happen. I fight. I grind. I don't stop. These aren't just beliefs. They're anchors. They give meaning, purpose, direction. But when life softens, when you no longer need to prove or push, those anchors loosen. And you start asking, who am I if I'm not performing? What do I do if I'm not fixing everything? Can I really deserve ease without earning it through pain? If you've ever felt anxious in moments of peace, you're not alone. You're not broken. You're just unfamiliar with what safety feels like. Survival. Wiring versus safety. Wiring. The nervous system doesn't just remember trauma. It adapts to it. When survival becomes your norm, your brain scans for threats constantly. Your body stays tense by default. Your sense of worth is tied to output, sacrifice, or endurance. And when those things aren't present, it can feel like you're floating, unmoored, and exposed. This is what makes healing so hard. Your system doesn't equate calm with safety. It equates calm with vulnerability. So even though your mind says, this is good, your body says, be careful. Until we teach the body otherwise, it will keep looking for struggle, because that's what it knows how to survive. Marcus had grown up in poverty, chaos, and violence. He made it out, got the job, built the family, bought the house. But he couldn't sit still. He worked 80 hours a week, picked fights with his partner, created pressure where there was none. And then he came into my office and said, I don't know how to just be happy. Something always feels off. Through our work, Marcus realized something profound. I thought I was chasing peace, but I was only comfortable in the chase. He had confused movement with meaning. Because stillness had always been dangerous. Our work wasn't about telling him to slow down. It was about helping him feel safe enough to rest. When struggle validates existence. Let's name something hard. For many people, struggle was the only time they got attention, affection, or validation. You were seen when you were sick. You were praised when you endured. You were loved when you sacrificed. So your nervous system linked love with suffering. That's not your fault. That's trauma wiring. But if you don't untangle it, you'll sabotage ease, overcomplicate joy, resist rest. Not because you want to suffer, but because suffering made you feel real. Let's create a new template where you get to feel real without being in pain. Building a post-struggle identity. This is where the real healing begins. Learning how to exist without crisis. Ask yourself, what would I do if struggle wasn't my default? Who am I when I'm not fixing something? What parts of me haven't been explored? Because they weren't productive or useful before. You're not lazy if you rest. You're not empty if you slow down. You're not irrelevant if you're not fighting. You are allowed to be, to enjoy, to breathe, to take up space. That's not regression. That's rebirth. Practice. Safety. Rehearsal. Find a quiet space. Place your hand on your heart. Breathe deeply. Whisper, "It's safe to be here. I don't have to prove anything." Repeat. Every day, until it starts to feel true. You are not defined by your pain. You are defined by your presence. Let that truth begin to root. If I wasn't struggling, how would I fill my time, speak to myself, and choose my next step? You are more than what you survived. You are more than what you perform. And peace is not a punishment. It's a practice. This is Dr. Gray. We'll keep unearthing what's really going on in the final chapter. Chapter 10. Why healing isn't a straight line. We live in a world that loves finish lines, milestones, before and after pictures. We like things that make sense on a timeline, linear, predictable, neat. So when healing doesn't look like that, we panic. We say, "I thought I already dealt with this. Why am I triggered again? I was doing so well. What happened?" And that's when the shame creeps in. The story that you've failed, that maybe you're broken after all, that all your growth was just an illusion. But let me tell you something I've told hundreds of clients. Relapse is not ruin. It's repetition asking for a softer landing. Healing doesn't go in a straight line. It spirals, it loops, it revisits, not to punish you, but to deepen you. Let's explore why healing repeats and how to move through those cycles with compassion instead of critique. The spiral of growth. Imagine a spiral staircase. You're walking upward, and from time to time, you find yourself passing the same window. You think, "Didn't I just see this view?" But if you zoom out, you'll notice you're higher now. The view may look familiar, but the altitude has changed. This is healing. You'll revisit the same wounds, but from new vantage points, with more awareness, with better tools, with deeper insight. The trigger is the same. You are not. Each revisit is an opportunity, not to erase the past, but to rewrite how you relate to it. The brain's efficiency trap. Your brain's job is not your happiness, it's your survival. And one of the ways it keeps you safe is by creating pathways. Quick, efficient, automatic responses to familiar stimuli. These pathways, formed by repetition, don't dissolve overnight. Even after insight, even after therapy, even after years. So yes, you may revisit old thoughts, reenact old dynamics, re-enter old environments. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. Healing isn't deleting the old code. It's building enough new code that the old one eventually stops running the show. And that takes time, repetition, grace. To be continued. Chapter 10. Why healing isn't a straight line. From the audiobook, Stop Chasing Success, Focus inward until it's safe to win. We live in a world that loves finish lines, milestones, before and after pictures. We like things that make sense on a timeline. Linear, predictable, neat. So when healing doesn't look like that, we panic. We say, I thought I already dealt with this. Why am I triggered again? I was doing so well. What happened? And that's when the shame creeps in. The story that you failed, that maybe you're broken after all, that all your growth was just an illusion. But let me tell you something I've told hundreds of clients. Relapse is not ruin. It's repetition asking for a softer landing. Healing doesn't go in a straight line. It spirals, it loops, it revisits. Not to punish you, but to deepen you. Let's explore why healing repeats and how to move through those cycles with compassion instead of critique. The spiral of growth. Imagine a spiral staircase. You're walking upward, and from time to time you find yourself passing the same window. You think, didn't I just see this view? But if you zoom out, you'll notice you're higher now. The view may look familiar, but the altitude has changed. This is healing. You'll revisit the same wounds, but from new vantage points, with more awareness, with better tools, with deeper insight. The trigger is the same. You are not. Each revisit is an opportunity, not to erase the past, but to rewrite how you relate to it. The brain's efficiency trap. Your brain's job is not your happiness. It's your survival. And one of the ways it keeps you safe is by creating pathways. Quick, efficient, automatic responses to familiar stimuli. These pathways, formed by repetition, don't dissolve overnight. Even after insight, even after therapy, even after years. So yes, you may revisit old thoughts, reenact old dynamics, re-enter old environments. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. Healing isn't deleting the old code. It's building enough new code that the old one eventually stops running the show. And that takes time, repetition, grace. Real story. Brielle had been working on her self-worth for years. She'd ended a toxic relationship, started therapy, found her voice again. But when she visited her family for the holidays, all her progress vanished. She became small, apologetic, defensive. I felt like I was 10 years old again, she told me. It's like I forgot everything I learned. But here's what I told her. You didn't regress, you returned, and returning always invites re-experiencing. Our brains associate places with states. A childhood home can reawaken every frozen version of us still waiting to be seen. But this time, Brielle noticed it. She reached out, she named it, she breathed through it. That is healing. Not avoiding the trigger, but staying connected to yourself when it arrives. Why it feels worse before it gets better. There's a paradox to healing. The more safety you build, the more your body releases what it was holding. That means more tears, more grief, more discomfort. Not because you're backsliding, but because your system finally trusts you enough to let go. Imagine carrying a backpack for 20 years. You finally sit down, unzip it, and start pulling things out. That moment is messy, but it's real. You're not falling apart. You're falling inward, into yourself, into honesty, into repair, and it's okay if that process doesn't look beautiful. Healing isn't an Instagram reel. It's sweat and snot, and sitting on the bathroom floor wondering what's next, and still showing up the next day. That's healing. To be continued. Chapter 10. Why healing isn't a straight line. We live in a world that loves finish lines. Milestones, before and after pictures. We like things that make sense on a timeline. Linear, predictable, neat. So when healing doesn't look like that, we panic. We say, I thought I already dealt with this. Why am I triggered again? I was doing so well. What happened? And that's when the shame creeps in. The story that you failed, that maybe you're broken after all. that all your growth was just an illusion. But let me tell you something I've told hundreds of clients. Relapse is not ruin. It's repetition asking for a softer landing. Healing doesn't go in a straight line. It spirals, it loops, it revisits. Not to punish you, but to deepen you. Let's explore why healing repeats, and how to move through those cycles with compassion instead of critique. The spiral of growth. Imagine a spiral staircase. You're walking upward, and from time to time, you find yourself passing the same window. You think, didn't I just see this view? But if you zoom out, you'll notice you're higher now. The view may look familiar, but the altitude has changed. This is healing. You'll revisit the same wounds, but from new vantage points, with more awareness, with better tools. With deeper insight, the trigger is the same. You are not. Each revisit is an opportunity, not to erase the past, but to rewrite how you relate to it. The brain's efficiency trap. Your brain's job is not your happiness, it's your survival, and one of the ways it keeps you safe is by creating pathways. Quick, efficient, automatic responses to familiar stimuli. These pathways, formed by repetition, don't dissolve overnight. Even after insight, even after therapy, even after years. So yes, you may revisit old thoughts, reenact old dynamics, re-enter old environments. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. Healing isn't deleting the old code. It's building enough new code that the old one eventually stops running the show. And that takes time. Repetition, grace. Real story. Brielle had been working on her self-worth for years. She'd ended a toxic relationship, started therapy, found her voice again. But when she visited her family for the holidays, all her progress vanished. She became small, apologetic, defensive. I felt like I was 10 years old again, she told me. It's like I forgot everything I learned. But here's what I told her. You didn't regress. You returned. And returning always invites re-experiencing. Our brains associate places with states. A childhood home can reawaken every frozen version of us still waiting to be seen. But this time, Brielle noticed it. She reached out. She named it. She breathed through it. That is healing. Not avoiding the trigger, but staying connected to yourself when it arrives. Why it feels worse before it gets better. There's a paradox to healing. The more safety you build, the more your body releases what it was holding. That means more tears, more grief, more discomfort. Not because you're backsliding, but because your system finally trusts you enough to let go. Imagine carrying a backpack for 20 years. You finally sit down, unzip it, and start pulling things out. That moment is messy, but it's real. You're not falling apart. You're falling inward, into yourself, into honesty, into repair. And it's okay if that process doesn't look beautiful. Healing isn't an Instagram reel. It's sweat and snot and sitting on the bathroom floor wondering what's next and still showing up the next day. That's healing. Integration is the goal, not perfection. If healing isn't a straight line, what is it? It's a practice of integration, of bringing all parts of yourself, the scared ones, the tired ones, the ones that acted out, into a circle of understanding. Integration says, you don't have to be fixed, you just have to be seen. It's not about never spiraling, it's about not abandoning yourself when you do. That's where real freedom lives. When you can, have a bad day and not make it mean you're broken. Lose your temper and still offer yourself grace. Cry for no reason and not rush to fix it. You begin to relate to yourself with the tenderness you always deserved. Practice the gentle reframe. Next time you spiral, try this. Pause. Place a hand over your chest. Say aloud, "This isn't failure. This is a return." Ask, what part of me is surfacing right now? Breathe. Stay with it. Witness. Remind yourself, this loop is not the whole of me, because it's not. It's just a chapter, a page, a paragraph. You are the author. You get to keep writing. If I didn't expect myself to heal perfectly, how much more courage would I have to keep going? You don't have to heal quickly. You don't have to heal completely. You don't have to make it look good. You just have to stay curious, stay present, stay willing. That's enough. That's always been enough. This is Dr. Gray. Thank you for walking this spiral with me. We didn't straighten the path, we deepened it. And somewhere in that depth, you remembered who you've been all along. Let's unearth what's really going on again soon.